And welcome back to Newsmax Now. We want to talk about Bill Clinton on the campaign trail and Paul Ryan. Could he suffer the same fate as a fellow former congressional young gun, a guy named Eric Cantor? Remember him? For more on this, welcome into the show, J.D. Hayworth, host of Newsmax Prime. Also with us, Dick Morris. Dick, it's great to have you with us. Let's start with Bill Clinton. You got a new column out in which you asked the question, is Bill Clinton a sociopath? Now, sociopaths don't feel empathy or emotion, really, but even you admit that one time you did see some shame from President Clinton.
Yeah, and it was notable because it was about a political situation. He really felt a sense of shame and upset about the dead Democrats who had been defeated in '94 because they voted for his budget proposal, and he felt guilty about that. And that was in total contrast to his attitude toward the women he had ruined and castigated and vilified for having said yes or no or maybe to him. And I was so struck by the complete absence of any sense of personal involvement with those people. I read Taylor Branch's notes, tapes. Mm-hmm. You know, Branch was interviewing Clinton over a period of time to write a book. And at night he would record his own reactions to the meetings they'd had. And he spoke about the president's lack of empathy, that he was treating the women and the crises he faced with them just like a budget crisis or something. There was no involvement, no personal involvement. And when I think of the women whose lives he ruined and how he would discuss them with me, like with Monica, we'd be talking about whether he should attack her as a stalker, should he go after her, would she cooperate with Kenneth Starr or would she not, the prosecutor? And if she wouldn't, then let's not go after her. But if she would, then let's go after her.
You're saying everything was
and there was
calculated.
Nothing, all calculated, and not the slightest, remotest indication of personal human involvement or guilt or anything like that.
We'll see if other candidates attack that aspect of Bill Clinton. I also want to talk about Paul Ryan, J.D. As we know, the House voted yesterday on this bill that is going to send the repeal bill actually to the president's desk, also to fund Planned Parenthood. But the timing is a little suspicious. It's also, you know, the bill that passed, the spending bill, packed with pork. Paul Ryan blamed Speaker Boehner for the most part, for what was in the bill. That's not exactly leadership, is it?
No, what you have right now is the Paul Ryan rehabilitation attempt, and it's really sad. What's happened here, John, is Paul seriously miscalculated what's going on in the country at large. Now, his immediate concern was the House Republican Conference. He got the Freedom Caucus and other conservatives to give him, quote, a pass. They said behind closed doors, this is Boehner's fault, a deal's a deal, we got to get this done. And the fundamental problem, and Dick, maybe you'll back me up on this, I go and talk to former colleagues and I say to them, our base doesn't blame us if we try and fail. They blame us if we fail to try. And with the vote yesterday on Obamacare repeal and the retroactive vote to defund Planned Parenthood, that's designed for television ads in November. But I think you've got a much more sophisticated and much more angry electorate.
Well, before you weigh in, Dick, let's play Paul Ryan yesterday speaking about this bill. Let's take a listen.
With this bill, we are standing for life. We are confronting the president with the hard, honest truth. Obamacare doesn't work.
You see Steve Scalise there. I don't know if he buys it, and that dog's not going to hunt very long for the insurgents in Congress. We're already hearing about a primary challenge for Paul Ryan. Dick, could Paul Ryan be the next Eric Cantor?
Well, I think he has two big advantages over Cantor. One is he's run for vice president, and we all know him. He's not some shadowy figure that got elevated from Congress. We've seen him in action and largely liked what we saw as Republicans. And secondly, we all understand that this is 2016 and that in a few weeks we're going to have a Republican presidential candidate, and over the period of the fall or the spring and into the summer, he'll be our spokesman, and that in a few months we can change presidents. And that this is really not the time to have a gigantic congressional fight because we're about to get a new president. And let's concentrate our energies on that.
You can still feel the tension just under the surface. I guess the test for Ryan is if he can keep that tension under control.
Look, if there were a government shutdown right now, it would ruin the Republican Party's chances of winning
JD, do you agree?
In November.
I'm not sure I entirely agree with it. I will agree with Dick on this. When a Republican standard bearer emerges, whomever it is, those serving in Congress will feel compelled to make sure they're on the same page. If it's Donald Trump, that's going to be a very interesting ride for a guy like Paul Ryan, who was so strident against Trump in terms of immigration control. But it's going to put Paul in a very unfamiliar and uncomfortable situation.
Cleveland is going to be very interesting come this summer. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. J.D. Hayworth, catch him on Prime tonight at 8 p.m. Dick Morris, you can catch him newsmax.com/insider. Coming up, Megyn Kelly says Donald Trump tried to woo her before he announced his presidential campaign, but Trump says Kelly is the last person that he wants to impress. We'll hash out this with someone who spoke to Trump himself about this very topic coming up. Plus, Vice President Joe Biden says he made a huge mistake last year, and he regrets it every day. Find out what he's talking about when we come right back.